wanted to address something that's been heavy on my mind for a number of years. You know, obviously, even unbelievers are like, yeah, something big is coming. You know, the world's dwindling down. Back in the car again, by the way. It's nice and cold. Gotta love Montana's consistently. At least this year it's consistent. Last few have been weird. Anyway, yeah, what's weird is this year is all of fall was completely frozen over into the negatives. And then we get into actual winter, 20, 30 maybe degrees, but winter spent it shoddily this year. It was weird. But anyway, so the coming Great Deception. There's a whole bunch of things that come into this. And I've been trying in my mind for the longest time to reconcile what the new Tower of Babel will be. You know, because the analogy is just like Nimrod, which, by the way, I don't want to get into it too deep, but Nimrod was not a physical hunter of men. He was a politician. That's what politicians do. They hunt down your allegiance. They make promises, and they drag you in with dreams of all the things that they could bring you if they were in power. Exactly the same way that Nimrod basically got everybody together and built the actual tower, the ziggurat. Basically a pyramid, but with the goal of being everybody working together towards a great common good that's supposed to bring man equal to, or as great as the gods. Same plan as Satan. That's really what's going on right now. The difference is the Tower of Babel itself is not a actual structure like it was before. Honestly, I feel like I'm giving you this video via the modern day Tower of Babel, not necessarily just the internet, although some people have pointed out that www in Hebrew is 3 6s, but again, I'm still convinced it's the gematria. I still think it's I think it's a cipher, just the way that the Greek describes. I also think that it describes not only the obviousness of the symbol that's coming, which will be clear, and I have a few ideas to what that is. I'm sure a few of you do too. But also that it describes the innumerable amount of ways that Satan is trying to replace the Lord, and it does so with ease with those that have rejected him, because they got to have something to fill the void. So he's the void filler, at least until the clock runs out. So how is he able to be the son of some God that's never been honored before, and still fulfill the Jewish entrapments that the final religion that's being foisted upon us not here long from now will entail? But the truth of the matter is modern day Judaism is not biblical, so it can be adapted to a modern day interpretation as to what God is, so long as that God makes a lot of the same promises, at least outwardly, to people that the Old Testament God, the actual God, Yahweh, promised to the Israelites. So I don't know if any of you are familiar with a guy named David Sinclair. He's the guy who actually originated the studies on resveratrol. He's the guy who originally started doing research on NMN, NAD+. Basically, these are all molecules having to do with longevity. They've realized, some of the chemical makeup of the body and its what are called epigenetic information reading systems in the body, that the cells are each designed to read over these informations, and over time these informations become riddled with errors because the reading system, according to David Sinclair, they become less and less efficient due to genetic damage, free radicals, loss of telomeres. There's a bunch of different things. Poor diet, too much sugar, etc. All of these things speed up the aging process, and he's been on the forefront of a lot of these studies. He's also the guy that's recently he's one of the guys, I should say, that's put together these what are called Yamanaka factors that are introduced into cells that actually can trigger this epigenetic reader system to devolve, or I guess, unwind back into its prime age. In other words, peak maturity, but not aged maturity. So 18 to 20, back when things were awesome and everything was rocking and we never hurt and could stay up all night and be stupid. Yeah. So we've identified genetic factors and methods that could eventually and will eventually be used to make some folks young. I guess that would be, I'm sorry to say, will likely be part of the beast platform of being able to live forever. Because remember, Satan doesn't want to give us an actual answer. He wants to give us a temporary, worldly, non-answer answer that is strong enough in our face as far as what would be considered evidence, even though it's not going to be legitimate, for us to trade over whatever we have for his version of things. In other words, the Christians that he's going to be aiming at, he's going to appeal to morally, because common sense and reason is not that far from the mind of even these crazy people that are pro whatever it is. They're just emotionally susceptible, not believers, and don't have any vested interest in living forever because they've already said no to that. So it totally makes sense that they would be co-opted. But we get along this continuum of crazy, this transgender, this feminism, this, nobody's getting married. There's just all kinds of things. MGTOW, men going their own way, women going their own way, etc. First and Second Timothy description of what the life will be like at the end times. That's going on right now. The answer to those problems is going to be proffered by somebody who is already coming across as very reasonable. He will have a history of seeming reasonable, although it'll be proven. And if the perhaps people that I think might qualify as the Antichrist are who they are, they're already riddled with lies, but they're also known for owning people. So anyway, he'll be a mouth for sure. He'll be a super mouth, and he'll be exorbitantly arrogant. And his father, I'm not a prophet, and if I am, I don't know it. I'm not a pastor because I'm not qualified. I don't believe, but from what I can see, from where I'm standing, the only thing that will actually qualify to be this Antichrist's father is going to be well, if he's brand new, he won't be anything we're used to. He certainly won't be called Yahweh. However, what technology do we have right now that seems to know everything and be able to do everything and figure things out that we've never been able to figure out, at least as humans alone, aside from angelic help? That's going to be AI. AI is already creating, drugs and drug therapies that are far more effective than anything humans have come up with on their own, because they're able to run like billions of research studies inside these computer programs on genetic codes that they already know all the ins and outs to, all at once, simultaneously. So these brains, these computers that are essentially a conglomeration of all human knowledge and then some, they're able to just bust out billions upon billions of potentials and eventually reach one, by chemically adhering to science, and reason, the things that we found out. And he's going to be able to epigenetically cut cancer off. The majority of diseases that are out there today are going to, and I don't want to be right about this, but I guess if this is true, mark my words, they're going to label cancer, heart disease, diabetes, they're going to label everything aging, and they're going to say that aging in and of itself is a disease and they need to find an answer, and he's going to utilize that technology in the mark. The false prophet, I believe, is already out there trying to get the right to be okay with jacking their brains into computers. You all know who that is. I don't need to describe it, but he's not fully hated on both sides. Bill Gates, too hated. Jeff Bezos, too hated. A lot of these folks that are up there that are friends with him are too hated. Well, friends. They're competitors is what they are. And obviously, y'all know who I'm talking about, so y'all know that he is not a believer, runs around in suits with Baphomet on the front, which is just pure Satanism, does the stupid little symbols at the galas, so same ones, by the way, that the Republicans did at the swearing in of John McCarthy last week. So don't think the government's going to give us any answers, because all of this is designed to give us as many problems as possible. So when they're David, and that's what they're going to call him too. They're going to call him the David. He's not going to be David, but they're going to call him the new David. And he's going to be sold to us as Savior, and he's going to have every single option available that tickles our fancy, every single notion, every point of information that we want to hear. I do actually believe that the mark is a mark in Greek. It is I don't know how to pronounce it exactly, but shagma, I think. But anyway, it's an actual mark in the skin. So whether or not there's other technological goodies behind it, which there absolutely will be, I promise, it will actually be a tattoo. A graphene, NeuroLink tattoo, that makes more sense as time goes on. Plus, if you guys think that they don't have technology that we've never heard of that's so far advanced everything that we've ever had in our faces right now, sitting in some warehouse somewhere ready to be put to use for the beast's purposes, got another thing coming if you think that don't exist. It absolutely does. There's so many crazy things out there right now, people, that it would blow your mind if it was actually there. But they're busy feeding us nonsense. They're busy getting the right and the left to fight. The left is already co-opted. The left already took all of their, euthanization injections. And, right now we're seeing some of the sudden death of it. And obviously they tried to get us to do it. That was their first best chance, was to talk us, the I don't even want to call myself the right, because I don't follow politics. I think it's ridiculous. But the conservatives, the Christians, the people that actually believe in morality, they did everything they could to try and drag us into it. But they've reached their pinnacle, so now they need to pivot. They're going to let this crazy go on for a little bit longer. They're going to throw Joe Biden under the bus. They're basically going to show the left to be as crazy as it's always been, which is not hard to do. Problem is the right is sitting around pretending that it's not crazy. So I believe that the next step in all of this is a turning up of the heat in 2023. The world problems are going to escalate. You're going to start seeing a lot of the earthquakes. You're going to see more wars and rumors of wars. Not long before the tribulation starts, if not right before, it says that there's a half an hour of silence in heaven, which means there is likely to be a 6-month or, certain period of peace that essentially stays the beginning of the actual tribulation itself. But AC will have stepped out of the shadows a little bit right before it starts. He won't just literally come out of nowhere, but it will seem like he comes out of nowhere, because right now, and even the guys that I'm thinking of that might actually be qualified to be AC, they are very much not adored by either side, and they intentionally call out both sides, which again, y'all are going to see this. This guy is going to be so incredibly arrogant and obvious. He's going to claim that he hasn't done and said all the things that he's done and said before, but we, unbelievers and people that don't know better, are quickly going to overlook all of that nonsense and follow him based upon his previous actions and his now perceived, I guess, spiritual or holy actions. But, it will be miraculous to see a machine come up with the answer to all problems, human. I honestly believe that the Nephilim in Genesis 6 were a genetic experiment. They were made much stronger than the original genetic code of man, because remember, we're weak sinners. We have no business enjoying this life or having a great amount of blessing, all while still being in sin, right? The great blessing comes after. So, again, back then, that was the promise of having super children, supermen. They went to dominate the earth. They were violent. They were evil. Of course, they ended up eventually getting killed off. But I think that's going to kind of be the same lure. We're going to be promised a whole bunch of things that come along with these marks. And I'm going to go so far as to say, on the surface level, they're going to work. You're going to see old folks turn young. You're going to see all their pains go away. Heart disease, cancer, diabetes, all of it's going to go away. And not because we're following their stupid alopecia and taking their pills. It is literally going to be what the old world would call an absolute miracle. Anyway, that's just the beginning of it. There's more. I honestly believe that the sales pitch is going to ramp up real hard here in the next couple of years. I honestly believe we are approximately 3.5 years away from, just over 3.5 years away from things kicking off, unfortunately, if my my pastor's reading is correct. Dr. Bob Luganbill, Kentucky University, head of classics division, icthys.com, ichthus.com. He runs it. He's run it for over 20 years. It's absolutely amazing. It's the most in-depth Bible information you will ever have. And I don't think I've ever seen somebody so gifted in the Spirit tell so many things that I didn't know was the truth. So you should look into that. We're going to go over this again, but the truth is the great deception followed by the great apostasy is coming hard and fast. And those of us who are not grounded in knowing that this is all supposed to happen, those of us that are not grounded in knowing that, whatever the world succeeds at, it's succeeding only temporarily because it's part of the great threshing floor. I know I've mentioned this before, but it's the machine that the Lord uses to crank out believers and unbelievers, majority unbelievers, unfortunately, but it does bring about the full, truthful beliefs of each individual, and that's the whole goal of the great threshing floor. It's not to make people happy or to make this life worth living or make your feelings feel good. It is literally the separator. Jesus Christ, the sword, separating belief and non-belief, period. Everything else will get wiped away into the dustbin of history, also known as hell. Anyway, this was a long one. I really don't like talking this long, but this is a very deep subject, and it's going to keep advancing. So I'm going to call this episode 1, and we'll talk about this here not too long from now, because that's what's going on right now. We are in it. There is no escaping it. The good news is we don't need to worry. Christians don't need to worry about worldly means. We don't need to worry about guns and violence and all that stuff. This was all foretold, and it's because the world has ran away from him, and there's no escaping it because of that reason. So thinking that we're going to fight this, with firepower is stupid. Thinking that we're going to, choose our own adventure is stupid. That being said, we'll talk a little bit more about Babylon and what it entails for believers, because I think that we're going to have the only measure of protection in the world against Satan and his machinations during the tribulation. That doesn't mean, we get off easy. I have a feeling we'll end up in internment camps. I've said that before. I'll say it again. But I don't think, at least for the majority of us, those of us speaking out now, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Anyway, bless you folks. Hope you're having a great day. And I will talk to you soon.